Okay, this is 5.4, number 11, and we're supposed to simplify these rational expressions. What we're looking to do is basically reduce a fraction. Rational expression, a ratio is a fraction. We're trying to simplify a fraction, which means we want to reduce it. Well, in order to do this, we need to factor it. Now, I am going to, let's go ahead and talk about how we would factor the top, and then we'll look at the bottom of this. We could do, if you wanted to do, I guess, factor by grouping, I guess, on this one, you would say I'm trying to multiply 6 times 1. I'm trying to multiply to get 6 and add to get negative 5. Well, negative 2 times negative 3 would work. So I would rewrite this top part, 6y squared minus 5y plus 1. I'd write it as 6y squared minus 2y minus 3y plus 1. And then if I wanted to factor it, I would say, okay, I can take a 2y out of these two terms, and that would leave me with 3y minus 1. And then I have minus 3y plus 1. Let me factor out a minus, and that minus 1, okay? And that would leave me with 3y minus 1. Okay, now it's hard to read that, but I don't know what to do here. Okay, so I've got a 3y minus 1 in each of those, and then my leftovers are 2y minus 1. So the top factors into, I'm going to write this in blue, okay? It factors into 3y minus 1 times 2y minus 1. Now I got to factor the bottom. One of the things I'm going to do in factoring the bottom is factor out, first of all, I'm going to put it in the right order. The y squared term would come first, so that would be negative 6y squared, and then minus y plus 1. Now what I'm going to do is just work on that bottom for a little bit. So I'll just keep the 3y, I'll tell you what, 3y minus 1, 2y minus 1. I'm going to keep that on top and not mess with it, but I'm going to factor a negative 1 out of that bottom because I don't want to try to factor with a negative y squared term. That makes that 6y squared positive 1 plus y minus 1. Remember, when you factor out a negative, it just changes the signs on everything. Okay, so now I need to factor 6y squared plus y minus 1. Let me keep the top part. Just kind of keep up with it. I'll write it down. I did factoring by grouping on the top part. I'm just going to do guess and check on the bottom. And the reason I am is that I'm running out of space here. Let me just factor this bottom part, and I'll go on the next page and write this 3y minus 1, 2y minus 1. If I'm trying to factor this part right here, let me just change to green. I'm just going to try to factor this right here. Then we'll go kind of put it on another page and clean it up. I could say that's negative 1. I got to keep the negative 1 out front. And I know that the only way to get a 1 is a 1 and a 1. And I know for 6y squared, I could do a 3y and a 2y. It might be a 6y and a 1y, but I'm going to see if I can kind of do this and figure it out without writing all that down. Now, I want to have a positive y. If I multiply this, I get 3y. If I multiply these two, I get 2y. I need that to be positive 3y minus 2y. This would, if I put a minus in front of that one, that would give me minus 2y. And if I leave this alone and put a plus on it, that would be plus 3y. And 3y minus 2y would give me a positive 1y like I wanted. So if I take this to another slide now, it's minus 1 times 2y minus 1. And I had a negative out front, and I had 3y minus 1 and 2y plus 1, right? All right, so now if I want to try to reduce this now, these would cancel out, and I would have, what would have left here would be 2y minus 1 over 2y plus, negative 2y plus 1. Now, there's nothing wrong with that answer, first of all. Here's what the book does. Their answer is the same thing, it just looks different. They put the negative with the top, first of all. Part of it is just how did they get their answer, okay? and I'm sorry, this should be a minus here. They put the negative with the top, and they left the bottom alone. Now they multiplied, you can look at that negative as having negative 1. Negative 1 times 2y would be negative 2y. Negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. And then on the bottom, you got 2y plus 1. Well, they say we don't like to start off with a minus on top, so let's switch the order on the top. Instead of minus 2y plus 1, let's put 1 minus 2y. It's the same thing. And then instead of 2y plus 1 on the bottom, let's put 1 plus 2y. Way up here, this was fine. This is how the book's written its answer. So either one of those is right. It's just changing the form of the answer. Okay, on number 13, they're really messing with you here with these negative exponents. And you know, and sometimes I think, oh, this might be a little more harder than what you need to do. But if you go to calculus, this is not going to be harder than what you need. If I look at this first factor, let me just write it again. R squared minus 5r plus 4. Now, this factor here is raised to the negative 2 power. That means it wants to be on the other side of the fraction bar with a positive exponent. So it's r minus 4 squared. I just move it to the bottom is all I really do here. Now, if I want to simplify this, I need to factor this top just because I want to see if something will cancel out, right? On the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and write it like this. R minus 4 squared is r minus 4 times r minus 4. I wrote it that way because I suspect that something's going to cancel out or they wouldn't have given me this problem the way they did. Let's look at the top. If I could factor this, I'm thinking what multiplies to give me 4 and adds to give me negative 5? Well, 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5, but I want it to be negative 5. So here's what I can do. I can say negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5, and negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Now, I could have done that in this little thing right here. I could have said I'm trying to multiply to get 4 and add to get negative 5, and I would have come up with negative 4 and negative 1. I'm trying to get you away from that so that you can think more mentally about doing this. But if you still need the diagram and you can't do it without it, draw the diagram. Now that I've got this factored, I can see that this will cancel out, and I end up, all I have left is r minus 1 over r minus 4. Do you see why I wrote the two copies now? So that I could cancel it out and then have my answer left over. Go ahead and do 15 because I think some of you are going to have trouble with it. It is x squared plus 2x minus 8 on top, and then on the bottom it's 2 minus x and 4 plus x. Already I can tell I'm going to have an issue with this. And here's the reason I even picked it to do. It's supposed to be an x. Is up top, if I go factor this, I'm going to have an x here and x here. Look on the bottom. Do I have factors that start with x's? I don't, do I? That's why I kind of knew this was going to be a little tricky. It's not hard. It's just going to be something we need to talk about here. Let's just look at the top first. Let me go ahead and just copy down 2 minus x over 4 plus x. All right, on the top, what multiplies to give me negative 8 and adds to give me 2? Well, 4 times negative 2 would be negative 8. 4 plus negative 2 would be 2. So my numbers are x plus 4 and x minus 2. Now, I can kind of see without doing too much, 4 plus x and x plus 4, that's the same thing. Let me just rewrite this as x plus 4. We usually don't have any trouble seeing that that's the same thing. Well, that would cancel these guys out, right? So what would I have left? I'd have left x minus 2 over 2 minus x. Now, this happens a lot in math where you get something like this and you think, man, they're almost the same. Can I just cancel them out? But they're not quite the same, are they? And if you remember, here's the little thing we do to fix that. I always like to have my x's first. What if I took and factored out, since these two are backwards of the one on the denominator, the 2 and the x are backwards of what's on the numerator, right? So let me factor a negative 1 out of there. If I factor a negative 1 out, that would be negative 2 plus x. Okay, well now since I've got x minus 2 on the top, and I've got a negative 1 out on the bottom, negative 2 plus x, since I'm adding, I can say that's the same thing as x plus negative 2, which is the same thing as x minus 2. So if I want, in other words, coming back here, If I want to make these look alike, I can just put x minus 2, and I can put an x minus 2 on the bottom and put a negative 1 out front, and that would switch the order and make them match. These cancel out. X minus 2 goes into x minus 2 one time, x minus 2 goes into x minus 2 one time. So on the top I have 1, on the bottom I have negative 1 times 1 is negative 1, and that's just equal to negative 1.